everyone. The Workforce Education Training and Youth Development Committee is now in session, and that's it. Yep.
All right.
Could you please take attendance?
You're welcome. Glad I can join another committee.
Santana, House Jones,
Present.
Gray. Here. Jones, Slide,
Present.
Spencer. Present. Star. Madam Chair, you have the quorum.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. So today we'll be hearing two pieces of legislation. And you know what, let me ask the committee, what would you all like to do? We have two pieces. I know everybody has gotten it. We have ordinance number 343-2024. This is the conversation or ordinance proposing guaranteed jobs through universal basic employment, as well as ordinance number 413-2024, which is the administration putting forth just some changes in how we will accept interns and fellowships and potentially a match. And so I'm assuming 343 is going to take more time than 413, so I was going to just have a liberty to do 413 first, and then we can get to 343, because I don't think it's going to take, I know it's not going to take as long as 343. So with that, I'm going to call up our HR director, and then we can get started.
Good afternoon.
Good
How are you
afternoon.
all?
Well, yes. So I'm going to read into the record ordinance number 413-2024, an emergency ordinance to supplement the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976 by enacting new section 143.06 relating to applications for and acceptance of grants and other funding and services from any public or private entity to place fellows and interns in various city departments. Director, good afternoon. Can you tell us about this piece of legislation?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Excuse me, this ordinance enacts a new section 143.06. It authorizes the Director of Human Resources or other applicable directors to apply for and accept fellowships and internship grants and other funding sources from any public or private entity for the placement of fellows and interns in city departments. Additionally, it authorizes the Director of Human Resources or another applicable director to file necessary paperwork, execute all necessary documents, and enter into necessary agreements to apply for, accept, or receive funds and/or services. It also authorizes funds to be appropriated, including disbursement for fellowship and internship programs. The ordinance also authorizes the applicable director to appropriate matching funds if necessary to receive the initial funding. Matching funds shall be paid from appropriated funds to the applicable city department out of their budget. Excuse me. Grants or other funding will be appropriated only in accordance with the terms and conditions of the grant and grantee's funding request, and budget is approved by the grantor or funding source. We do have a few expected results from this request, this piece of legislation. Basically, to continue to foster an extremely talented pipeline of fellows and interns into the city. It's already proved to be financially prudent and operationally beneficial. Probably the best example of this is the Cleveland Foundation's Public Service Fellowship Program. And just a few stats, we had 12 fellows engaged across 10 departments. 2023, there were 5 fellows engaged in multiple departments. And then we're currently pending the application and hopefully acceptance of additional fellows for 2024, 2025. In general, one of the main reasons why we're putting this forth is to reduce the time to hire, which is one of my big initiatives here in the city. I do believe that it increases efficiency and cost effectiveness of the hiring process overall, basically to streamline. It also assists us with the ability to efficiently and more timely continue current programs while considering and accepting new programs into the city. Most importantly, I think, though, it provides professional and personal development training and experience to individuals combining their career interests while supporting operational needs of the city. And I would appreciate your support.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And now we'll have questions from the committee. Councilwoman Spencer.
Excuse me.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and appreciate hearing this piece today. My question through the chair is, how does this ordinance change from the current state? So what is the difference between the current state and what this ordinance updates or achieves through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the main piece that is added is the ability to accept the grant or funding source and then follow up to subsequently appropriate it all the way through disbursement. So what it permits us to do is streamline particularly the backside of the process and then the hiring or bringing on of fellows or interns. This is certainly in no way to circumvent any authority, particularly of the legislative body, but rather to, I think, fit into our overall goal, or one of our overall goals, which is to really increase the efficiency in which we do things, or I do things, particularly related to hiring.
And then through the chair, so how were we, prior to this piece, for example, bringing on the public service fellows with that specific example?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I believe prior, and this was before my time, but as I understand it, when a grant was looking to be accepted or a funding source, the actual program, inclusive of the grant, would be presented to this body and then reviewed and approved on a case-by-case basis or a grant-by-grant basis. So this is the main, this would give me and the city the ability to move this more into the administrative realm primarily. Not, of course, without notice to City Council or communication with City Council, discussions with City Council, whatever's preferred, but just the ability to take these programs on a little bit more administratively within the departments.
Great. So what I'm understanding, Madam Chair, is that this is giving broader legislative authority overall, rather than individual internship or grant opportunities coming individually for legislative authority. This is sort of, I don't know if describing it as blanket legislative authority is too broad a term, but this is a much more flexible legislative authority. I don't think I have any specific concerns about that, but I may, as we're listening to our other colleagues' questions, may want to come back on the list, and then I know we're going to want to discuss an amendment as well.
Mr. Chairman.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, appreciate it, Chairwoman, thank you. I just have just one question for right now, because it's new. I believe you chair to
Director Cole.
Director Cole. I think you stated earlier that this is a Cleveland Clinic Foundation fellowship program? Did you mention something to that effect?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I gave that as an example of
just
one of our
example.
most successful programs
One
currently.
successful program that you already have with the Cleveland Clinic Foundation.
The Cleveland Foundation, correct.
Okay, Cleveland Foundation, okay.
Correct.
All right, now this second question is, it says here that the application for acceptance of fellowship and intern grants and other funding and service from any public or private entity. Explain that a little bit more to me.
Sure, through the chair to the councilwoman. So there could be a variety of funding sources. I mentioned Cleveland Foundation as a specific example, but it could be public, it could be a federal grant, a state grant, a county grant. EPA, I know was recently brought up in another piece of legislation for a different reason, but and then on the private side, there could be philanthropic, sorry, that's a hard word, organizations that also provide grants, on the private side that we'd want to consider as well.
Okay, and also last question. Where will you be proposing the fellowships and the interns coming from? The fellows and the interns will be coming from? How will they be able to apply for the positions to come into these positions with the city?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, I believe that would primarily follow the grant. So if we saw a particular grant that we were interested in, they would consider our proposal for their certain number of fellows, for instance, or interns, and then award us or not award us potentially subsequent individuals. As I mentioned earlier, just as an example, in 2022, we were awarded 12 fellows from the Cleveland Foundation. In 2023, we were awarded 5. So it kind of depends on the individual funding source, I think is probably the best way to answer that.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilman Slife.
Thank you. And just to kind of explain, I think the goal of this another way, and correct me if this is wrong, if someone were to come to the city of Cleveland and say, we want to give you X amount of money for a scholarship program, you don't have authorization to receive the money. You have to, currently stands, you have to come to council to ask to receive the money first. So the goal of the legislation is to remove that step. Why wouldn't we take the money to hire interns? Is that correct?
Through the chair of the councilman, yes, but it wouldn't necessarily mean we would want to evaluate on a case-by-case basis.
Sure, and I'm not. It's not a trick question. It's just that
Yeah.
I think it's not intuitive to people that if someone wants to donate to supplement something from whether if someone wants to donate to put an extra slide in at the park, that the city of Cleveland can't just do that right now. You have to receive authorization to receive the money.
Right.
My question then is more about the matching funds, and in section B it says the matching funding shall be paid from funds appropriated for the use of the applicable city department, which my understanding would be that, or my suspicion would be that if the matching funds, in the current situation, if authorization were received to receive the money and the matching amount was under $50,000, that maybe standalone legislation wouldn't be needed for the match because it's under the threshold. But I guess the question is sort of a scale. How much do we expect the matching funds to exceed $50,000? How much have they? How much could they? And is what? And I'm not proposing a solution as much as I'm trying to think through it. What do we need to do to make sure that we are having a sense of the scale of matching funds being dispersed should this pass as it's written?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't know of any specific cases or dollar amounts in which we've done matching funds. However, I believe that the thought process for me is more so that if there is a particular amount and it's up to a certain percentage of maybe scalable, for instance, where they're willing to give more depending upon if we give some to have the ability to have more fellows or interns. We would have the ability to do so, but it would certainly be contingent upon what was already budgeted to the department or through their annual budget. Not something that would be in addition to, and if it would be in addition to, that was not already legislatively approved, my assumption would be then we would come back and request that as a request for additional funds or additional match for that particular program.
Okay, so to the chair, I'm not gonna, I'll end it. I don't think I have enough of a thought process to propose, or what I think the nightmare scenario would be, and I don't think that anyone's trying to suggest it. I'm not trying to suggest that anyone's trying to be deceptive, but suppose at some point in the future, it's council's prerogative to put $100,000 towards recreation for programming, and through legislation, the administration could take that $100,000 and do an internal transfer for interns, which is also a good thing, but maybe that wasn't the legislative intent when we passed the budget, and trying to have a sense of making sure that we are not allowing any internal transfers so while funds are being appropriated from the applicable department, they're not sort of undermining what the intent or the previous conversation had been at this table. So I know that's kind of big and kind of macro, so I will go back to the table and write it down in a more cohesive way, and maybe to talk with colleagues if it's something we need to think through further. So thank you.
Through the chair, I guess I would just want to add that, certainly there would be no intent to reappropriate or redirect or pull a fast one. This would be more so just in a case that really just, again, like the first part of the piece of legislation is just to give the ability to do these things when necessary. And then anything that could be considered, different or off or not originally budgeted or something like that, we would do the right thing and bring it back.
And then I think, final. The legislative intent behind this, I think, is great. I just want to make sure that we're thinking through all scenarios.
Sure.
So, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. To Mr. Cole, we're putting this together, so I presume, so maybe you can give me clarification, that you already have something in plans? You have an idea of how this is going to impact? You have some kind of grant that may come to the city to help us with fellows and interns?
Through the chair to Councilman Jones, well, the next one I know that's already on deck is the next Cleveland Foundation grant, which is coming up very quickly. This grant, along with others, do have, in some cases, tighter timelines for our ability to do all of these steps and they get individuals in. But that's a little bit more than you asked for. But the one that's coming up that I know of right away is the Cleveland Foundation grant.
Okay. And that will, how much is that for, and how many interns will that be able to supply the city with? Madam Chairwoman, to Mr. Cole.
Through the chair to the councilman, so that's yet to be determined. We will apply and then see what would be awarded, to us, to the city.
Do we currently, Mr. Cole, Madam Chairwoman, to Mr. Cole, do we currently have a program that's in place right now where we have fellows and interns working at the various different city departments?
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, we do. We have both, actually, fellows and interns. Interns currently under our budget are primarily summer student interns or student aides. However, there's a lot of other opportunities out there in partnerships, whether it be with educational institutions or funding that is a partner to an educational institution that we could start to look to expand, which is honestly one of my biggest goals. I brought an individual on in our department a few months ago who's in the process of trying to develop a more overarching internship program for the city of Cleveland.
What kind of, can you just speak up just a little bit closer?
Sorry.
You see me leaning, I'm trying to hear you.
Yeah, I apologize, and I can't tell if
Push your mic up.
I'm being
Push that part up. There we
received
go.
or not. Is that better?
That will be a lot better. Push it on. It
Okay.
ain't gonna bite you. Thank you. All right.
Just to repeat, so I hired an individual a few months ago, and one of the biggest tasks he has is to create a larger program for the city of Cleveland for interns. And what it's intended to do is link all the internship programs that we may have within the various departments, or connections or employment pipelines that have an internship component under one program. But along with that, there's, I believe, a lot of opportunity to develop other, not only pipelines, but funding sources that could be associated with interns or fellows.
So right now, you have someone, Madam Chairwoman, to Mr. Cole, that's in your department that's putting together a program to help with the current programming of interns to be distributed throughout the city of Cleveland. Is that correct? That's what I'm hearing you say?
That is correct.
Okay, and then secondary, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Cole, Madam Chairwoman, to Mr. Cole, this funding here, if, you know, right now the way we have it set up, all of the outside systems are paying for the interns and the fellows to come into the city hall and work basically, and the city doesn't have any skin in the game in some of that, or do we have skin in the game, or would this allow us to have skin in the game? How does it currently work, and will this then open up, I would presume, I'm just being presumptuous, that we don't pay our fellows and interns? So do we pay our fellows and interns?
Through the chairwoman, both. So we have some funded externally, and then we have some funded internally through our individual department budgets.
I see. And then right now, this would allow you to publicly be able to accept those grants and other gifts or funding services from private entities in order for and with the various different city departments to match some of that, I would presume. Would that also include benefits?
Through the chair, it depends on the grant. Currently, for instance, the one that's fresh in my mind, just because it's the next one up for the Cleveland Foundation, that grant does pay both. It pays salary and benefits and some paid time off. But it really depends on the grant. It depends on the funding source as to what we would have the ability to do with the money based upon their terms and conditions.
Well, here's what I would say, Madam Chairwoman. I think that, you know, anything that can begin the proposition of getting interns and fellows in on a much broader level to allow them to see how government works in the various different departments is always a plus. And it helps to, Madam Chairwoman, to Mr. Cole and to the administration, which is kudos on this one, so they're prepped and prepared and have the capacity and the ability to take over, because we're not going to be here forever, sitting here at this table. So having these programs set up in place to fundamentally work, I have no uneasiness and unreadiness of it. The question I would ask, though, are we going to get extra folks in your department to help out? Do you need extra folks over there, or how does that work? I mean, how are you coming along now? So I know that you took over a department that you had some challenges at.
Through the chair, yes. Thank you, Councilman. Things are coming along well. I have made some changes, added a couple of positions, currently in the process of hiring some additional folks, and thank you for approving recently. But things are coming along well. I think the department's in a good place at this point, and continuing to move forward well. And I'm going to continue to evaluate, you know, as we move forward, really with the best interests of the city in mind, to best serve our employees and you know, secondarily, of course, the citizens.
No further questions, Madam Chairwoman. I yield my remaining seconds and give the floor back over to you. Have no unreadiness on this piece.
Thank you. Councilwoman Switzer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer an amendment to 413-2024. Under Section 143.06A, add a sentence at the end of paragraph A. The sentence reads as follows: "The appropriate director will notify the council in writing when and where a fellow or intern is placed." I have a little more language to our amendment. Sorry, I was checking our attorney. We're good? Okay. And then, excuse me, sorry, Councilman Slife. Then under B, so 143.06B, insert, let's see here, should be paid from, okay. After the appropriate director is further authorized to pay cash matching fund up to $50,000, comma. So that is inserting up to $50,000. I'll read it again. B, the appropriate director is further authorized to pay cash matching funds up to $50,000, comma, if required to receive grant funding. And then finally, under B, add a final sentence, any cash match over $50,000 shall require additional legislative authority. Okay, thank you.
It has been moved and appropriately second to amend ordinance number 413, 2024. Are there any further questions? Councilman Starr?
One question I would have for under section 143 with the amendment .06, do we want to have any type of language to include a quarterly or annually update for council, or would that be enough just to say over the 50,000 to the chair, to Councilwoman Jenny Spencer?
Thank you. I'll clarify the first part of the amendment under A. I think the intent is similar to what you're suggesting, Councilman. We added the sentence, the appropriate director will notify the council in writing when and where a fellow or intern is placed. So it would be more on that rolling basis as those placements come on board. We would be notified with my understanding that this amendment would accomplish a notification to council with each placement.
Yeah, but on top of that, I'm just saying, okay, they hire somebody, the next you know they don't work out in 30 days, then what? Or like how often will we find out what happens with that individual? Is it just let us know we about to hire this person and that's it? Or do we get some type of follow-up during their time? That's what I'm trying to get clarification, because that's very important. We can post something, get people into a place, the next you know, you look up 8 months around, then you find out that the person was only there for 1 or 2 months or anything like that. So is there further follow-up discussion that we can know how the process is actually going? Because in different jobs, different positions, people be called affirmative action people or the folks. How do we keep that understanding that people are in that position and have some context of what is actually going on with the individual? Do we want to include something to have that follow-up? That's just.
Yeah, I think when we, I guess, in getting the written information, Councilman Starr, and understanding this group of individuals are here for a time-limited basis, I think it's important for HR to clearly, in that written notice, to outline the time duration, you know what I'm saying, the time duration that they will be here. And again, you know, as when we get into our annual budget, that should be a part of their presentation to actually talk about how, you know, the city of Cleveland is bringing in fellows and interns. And I don't know if we need that in there, but again, since we are talking about this of legislative intent, hopefully the director, our administrative reviews, because this is shifting to administrative reviews, understanding that that is the expectation.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The making the changes here, you would, when you accept the grant, you will automatically come back and talk about, Madam Chairwoman, to the administration, to Mr. Cole. You would automatically talk about the grant and probably where you would be directing the fellows and the interns to. You would normally do that. Is that correct?
Through the chairwoman to the councilman, I don't think we do currently have a process in place similar to that. But I think it sounds like this would probably accomplish that piece as amended. But certainly we'd be more than happy to.
I mean, normally when a grant comes in, you have to bring it through the process, right? So with that, because the way you have this drafted right now is to the appropriate department, right? So would that appropriate department handle the actual, Madam Chairwoman, to Mr. Cole, the actual disbursement of bringing that to the table and talking about the interns that will be coming to the department? Or will you be that person who will come and do that and then talk about what that cost would be?
Through the chairwoman to the councilman, we would notify, when and where they're going based upon the individual grant or internship opportunity.
Okay. So then the next question would be, Mr. Chairman, then, presumptuously, right? This amendment that has been made, how will it impact the existing piece, or would it, or where's the administration's thought on it? It won't bother the process or hinder it in any kind of way?
Through the chair, I don't see it as hindering the process at all. I think the notification to council is absolutely appropriate, and there's certainly nothing that we wouldn't want to share with you, based on the results of the program, or individual program or grant.
Okay. No further questions, Madam Chairwoman. Ready for the vote.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded to amend ordinance 413-2024. Madam Clerk, call the roll. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Amended ordinance 413-2023 has been successfully passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
If everybody on the committee can please sign the legislation. All right, next coming up, we will have ordinance 343-2024, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Economic Development to enter into a grant agreement with the United Way of Greater Cleveland, or its designee, to act as the city's agent to partially finance costs for the development, administration of the providing of small business and participant support associated with development of a universal basic employment and opportunity pilot program. We also have two individuals that have come for public comment, and as I always say, I think before we get into presentations, I do think it's just a good practice to let our guests come up and do their public testimony, and then we'll get into the presentation that usually will be a little lengthy. So I'm going to first call up Ms. Joy Johnson to the table. You have 3 minutes to offer your public testimony.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and fellow council members. I'm Joy Johnson, and I am the Executive Director of Burton Belcar Development. We are the nonprofit community development corporation that serves the Central, Kinsman, and Buckeye neighborhoods on the east side of Cleveland. We have the privilege of working with both Councilman Starr and Councilwoman Gray in our work. We have also had the privilege to serve as the initial fiscal sponsor for the pilot phase of the Universal Basic Employment project, where we worked with many residents, mostly from Ward 5, working with Step Forward to identify women to participate in the pilot. So it was a great opportunity for us to hear from folks who will ultimately be impacted by this work, to see what do they think would work best. We've had so many programs that are designed to help folks move out of poverty, but for some of them work, and for some various reasons, a lot of those don't work. But with this pilot, we were really able to hear and center the voices of the women participants and really design it as they saw fit. And so, you know, we worked with Devin Cotton. Devin Cotton used to work on staff at Burton Bell Carr, so very familiar with his personal work ethic and ideas that were oftentimes out of the box and didn't quite fit at CDC, but we're really excited to support him in this work. And it was really exciting to see other folks support as well. So he outgrew us as his fiscal sponsor as he started to get money from different foundations, public and private, whether it was the Sisters of Charity, Cleveland Foundation, the Deaconess Foundation. He was raising all kinds of money. I said, your budget can't be larger than Burton Bell Carr's. So I was excited I serve on the steering committee as well, one of 14 community leaders that get to guide it, but it was really excited to see the partnership grow with United Way so that the project can move on to the next level.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank
you. Next, we'll have Mr. Jeffrey Veresby. You're going to have to let me know. Okay, sorry. Did it? Oh, okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, councilors. As the chair mentioned, I'm Jeff Veresby. I am the Chief Operating Officer at Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. I've also been an advocate of this project that Devin's been leading, Universal Basic Employment, since its onset. I also met Devin when he first started working at Burton Bell Carr, working with Joy, and then we had the fortune of working together at the old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation before he started his initiative, and then I moved over to Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. I'm here on behalf of Cleveland Neighborhood Progress because this is a complementary initiative that is innovative to community development. Community development at its very core is about investing in people and investing in place. And a program that supports jobs and supports people who can then create more wealth within their communities and have access to the bountiful opportunities that are afforded to them by the private sector is a wonderful investment in people in place. And we believe that we should be investing in more innovative ideas that are complementary to community development like that, and are happy to see that work proceed. As the previous commenter mentioned, this work has also brought national attention and national investment. And I think that is important for us to be celebrating leaders who are bringing that profile of Cleveland to the rest of the country, and then bringing those resources and awareness back to investments in our community. And CMP is a proud partner and supporter of Universal Basic Employment.
Thank you very much. All right, and now once we get to questions, but again, public comment, we just allow people to say their, give their public comment, and we'll usually go from there. So now I am calling up to the table Mr. Devin Cotton, as well as with Universal Basic Employment, as well as Mr. Ken Surratt with the United Way of Greater Cleveland. So take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair and council members, for hosting us today. I'm Ken Surratt. I'm the Chief Development Investment Officer at United Way of Greater Cleveland. In the piece of legislation, we would essentially serve as the fiscal agent for the development of the Universal Basic Employment Program. I'm sure you all are familiar with the United Way, but for the last over 100 years, we really have been a big piece in the community to help those in need, and really more recently trying to focus on getting to the root causes of why people are in need and really solving those. When you think about poverty, it is really a measure of income, right? And so what's the best way to get people out of poverty? We want to make sure that they have the income to propel them out of poverty. And that's one of the things that really attracted us to this role. Previously, I've met Devin before and had served on his advisory council, really thinking through this in the design phase that he was in. Now that that's over, and I think he's gotten a great feel of some of the outline, right, of what this could look like. It's time to go deeper, and that's what we're here to talk to you about. Is this kind of next phase is the research and design phase to really get to a point where a pilot would be one that has answers a lot of the questions I'm sure that you will have, and is going to be successful in helping people truly move forward and be truly self-sufficient through work, and have ripple effects on both their kind of local neighborhoods as well as the broader economy. I'm going to talk a little bit in like why United Way. I think we've served in this capacity in many instances before, where we're a partner, fiscal agent, convener, whatever is fundraiser. I'm thinking of very recently the Scholar House ribbon cutting that was in Councilman Starr's district. We were a partner in that with CHN as well as the Tri-C and Cleveland State and Step Forward, fundraising, convening, anything that was needed. But I think a better example might be Right to Counsel, where we were partners, we have and are partners with legal aid in helping get the right established through legislation. But then since then, we also, again, do a lot of the marketing outreach. We have helped to fundraise for the program. We fund the program as well as do we have a third-party independent evaluation. We come to you every year with those results. So it adds another layer of accountability and support to make sure that these types of innovative programs are successful. So we would play a similar role here for Mr. Cotton. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Devin, who can walk you through a lot more of the details of what universal basic income is. Employment, sorry.
Thank you, Ken. So UBE is a public policy initiative with the mission to demonstrate that a jobs guarantee policy can eliminate poverty and be a stop payment on its many symptoms. We do this by subsidizing the employment and salaries for 100 under and unemployed Clevelanders over 3 years to prove that a jobs guarantee policy is a simultaneous investment in people, place, and business. UBE imagines a world where a single mother with 2 kids can walk down her street and go be employed at a diner at a $50,000 salary, designated as the after-school drop-off for her kids. They can finish their homework in the back booth while she finishes her shift, and they can walk back up their street to a home that she owns because her $50,000 salary provides her with the opportunity to qualify for a mortgage and the other private sector banking tools that you and I use every single day. Our work began by centering 40 of the most proximate voices to poverty in the design of this solution. Through a human-centered design process, we brought in 20 Black women and 20 business owners to be able to provide us with insights on how UBE has the ability to solve the symptoms of poverty that show up in their lives, in their businesses, and in their community. Symptoms like crime, languishing neighborhoods, poor educational attainment, employee turnover, poor employee engagement, and so many others. A resounding yes came from all 40 participants that said UBE has the ability to solve these issues of poverty and so many others. Today, with Legislation 343-2024, City Council has the opportunity to provide refuge and restore agency and dignity back to the 130,000 Clevelanders currently living in poverty, dignify historically low-wage work, and be able to be the first city in the country to run a jobs guarantee pilot. The investment from Cleveland City Council will help us to do 3 things. First, it will help us to build the capacity to prepare small businesses and support partners to provide services and employment to ensure that this pilot does no harm to the participant and the participating businesses. Putting 100 individuals to work at small businesses at a guaranteed income of $50,000 requires significant infrastructure. This funding can help prepare those businesses, as I said, again, to receive the wage subsidy and ensure the participants have the right supports in place so the pilot does no harm. Secondly, The funding helps us retain a evaluation and research firm with the national pedigree to be able to shift national and state policy on poverty. Those policies that have often left the symptoms of poverty at the doorstep of cities without any natural solutions to combat those issues. What we're building here is the first piece in a larger movement to create better economic guarantees overall in our entire country. And then lastly, funding from Cleveland City Council will help us catalyze leverage funds from new investors that will put $15 million directly into the hands of Clevelanders. An investment from Council sends the greatest signal of confidence that unlocks resources from local, national, corporate philanthropy, private donors, venture forward investors. This funding will provide the city with a 25-to-1 return on investment that directly impacts the main streets and the residents of Cleveland. Thank you.
Okay, so do we have any questions?
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Jones.
I have a lot of questions. And let me say this, Madam Chairwoman. First, let me thank you for reaching out to me concerning this particular piece of legislation that's due here today. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to really brief myself on it in depth to really understand this. I certainly would like to sit down with you, and I see that Cleveland Housing Network has some time into it too, to really kind of grasp and understand how this mechanism here will work, and if it would be beneficial. Part of the reason why I didn't get a chance to go through that was I've been thankful and blessed that I'm dad to a wonderful human being that graduated from Ohio State University over the weekend. So our family was there celebrating him getting to the point of magna cum laude, in addition to all the other different honorary stuff that he received. And so we were excited about that, and I didn't get a chance to focus on this. But this is something that you stated earlier that would be something that could be utilized as leveraging to have an impact on national policy.
Yes.
So is the city of Cleveland ground zero for this?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Joe Jones. First, congratulations to your son, and congratulations from graduating at Ohio State. Yes, so Cleveland has the opportunity to be the first city to run a jobs guarantee pilot, which is extremely exciting, and I think it's a much needed solution for a city where a third of its residents are currently living in poverty and 50% of its children. And then also Cleveland's been the first to do so many things, being the first to demonstrate what it means to be a beacon to create national leverage for demonstrating what it means to eliminate poverty is so important. As Jeff mentioned earlier, we have national advisors on our committee board. We also have gotten national notoriety, and so many people and individuals that run universal basic income pilots have said that this solution is the solution that has the ability to walk across the aisle across the country.
And Madam Chairwoman, what department would help to administer the funds?
Well, currently, as in the legislation, it says economic development, but it's an amendment. It actually will be community development.
It will be
Community
Mr.
development.
Hernandez?
Yes.
Okay. So
That's just point of clarification. That's for the $600,000 that's being asked.
Okay.
The larger one that will be fundraised, that's all through the United Way of Greater Cleveland.
okay. So can we go through Madam Chairwoman, to the distinguished gentleman, the breakdown, the financial breakdown? If you could go through that, where the funds will be coming from, how that works.
Yeah, so at the
Just
end
for, it is in your packet that was printed out.
Yeah,
And no, just for the listening audience, and then if members, it's on the thing, but he's going to go through it. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what we're doing right now in this phase is that, as again Joy and Jeff mentioned, that we had an initial support from Cleveland Philanthropy to help us get through the design phase, where we centered the voices of 40 of the most approximate Cleveland voices to poverty. And what we're in right now is the next capital raise to help us, again, stand up the pilot and build the necessary infrastructure to go about doing that. And of this project budget, $600,000 of it is we're asking for Cleveland City Council to provide support support for us, again, to build the necessary infrastructure and capacity of UBE to go out and have the requisite conversations in community in place to find the right community in corridor and or neighborhood for us to implement the pilot in. So again, $560,000 will provide the capacity needed to go out and do that work. And then the other amount of dollars that we're asking for Cleveland City Council would go directly into the hands of small businesses. Again, the idea of that a coffee shop or a tire shop or something like that is not necessarily prepared to receive a $250,000 wage subsidy, but now we need to go out and put the infrastructure in place from a technical assistance standpoint, from an HR standpoint, from an accounting standpoint, and us bring all those supports in place so that they are able to do that work and be a part of the pilot.
So let me just go down this, because I heard what you had to say, but I want to just go down this here. So your project administration is about $560,000 and some change. And the city of Cleveland is matching your project administration cost at the same amount. Is that correct?
No, that was through the chair to Councilman Joe Jones. The total support would be from the Cleveland City Council for
Would
the
be
project.
$560,000.
Yeah, that's the
So-
budget total, and then the next column is the request from Cleveland City Council.
Okay. So we're paying for the $560,000 help with the infrastructure to set all of the system up. And then we'll also be throwing another $11,000 in there for equipment and support.
No, that is the second column
So
is the
can you go down this? I asked if you could, and that helps me to understand.
Yeah, so going down specifically the request, so that would be the third column. That is the request of Cleveland City Council. So that would be $560,000 and some change for project administration, as well as $39,000 and some change for the money that goes directly into the small businesses and the support organizations to stand up the pilot. So that's in column 3, through the chair to Councilman Jones.
So the $37,000 comes from the city too, the mint fee, or that comes from the United Way of Greater Cleveland?
No.
Through the chair to the councilman, the difference between, if you look at the bottom line, the budget total and the request of the $600,000 to the city will all be supplemented with private fundraising.
So do we know where that's coming from?
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, there are already some applications submitted for support of that that we think are highly likely to come in.
Who is it coming from, Madam Chairwoman, to the distinguished gentleman from United Way?
Sure. Through the chair, there's so applications into the Gun Foundation and Cleveland Foundation as well.
So we're hoping to get that approved. Is that correct, Madam Chairwoman, to the distinguished gentleman?
Through the chair, that's correct.
I like your tie. I had a tie like that a long time ago.
Thank you, sir.
So Madam Chairwoman, let me just say this. So the fund development, when we go down where it says funding partners in cultivation and funding briefing, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, through the chair to the Councilman Jones. First, I want to take one step back. Once we do our total private raise, the support from Cleveland City Council and then the private money we raise will be closer to 1-to-1 match. Right now, we made a conservative budget based upon what we think is going to come in, but when we have our total conversation with Cleveland Philanthropy, that includes, again, the Gun Foundation, Cleveland Foundation, and Deacon's Foundation, will be closer to a 1-to-1 match with the resources that you all being providing. And then the funders briefing, which would not be the money that would be coming from Cleveland City Council would not be covering, but that would be a 3-day process in where we bring those national investors that are looking at this pilot and looking at this work here into Cleveland and stand up a 3-day event for them to come in, be immersive with the small business, be immersive with the participants, and be immersive with folks like you all as well, to come here into Cleveland, see the work that we're doing, and then hopefully write the requisite check at the end of the 3-day experience after they learned about our work firsthand.
Okay, I see. So you have a number of other fundings down here, Research Partner at $75,000, Research Technology at $15,000, and Strategic Communication Materials. This is all a conservative estimate?
Yes.
And then your total budget comes down to like almost close to $1 million.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So it comes to $1 million, and then, so once you've gotten God blesses you with getting this, the 600,000 from the city, is that right?
Yes, sir. Through the council, to the chair, to the councilman, yes.
And through the chairwoman to the distinguished gentleman, once we've gotten all of this set aside, you've developed out and you've built your team, you're going to be working with the United Way. Will you also be working with Cleveland Housing Network? What are all the associate organizations you're working with?
Yeah, so Jeff Resby representing Cleveland Neighborhood Progress. So we have, through the chair to Councilman Jones, we have a 14-member advisory committee that is represented at the end of the presentation. Some names that I'm pretty sure you all are very much well aware of. And as a mandate of myself and a mandate of, again, my relationship with the United Way of Greater Cleveland, and along with our funding partners, we have 14 members here that provide eyes on the work that we're doing, that it's not just Devin stewarding this work, but members like Councilwoman House Jones, Ken Surratt, Joy Johnson, Jeff Orespi, who help us guide through and provide subject matter expertise from a financial oversight standpoint, but also from a mission and efficacy standpoint. So we're in partnership with all these individuals, as well as so many other members of the community that are not listed here, that help us navigate that work.
I see. And so once everything is all established and set up, can you take me from, our investment, how does this work? Do you have like a pool of businesses that are actually lined up right now? Or are you going to be lining it up? How does that work? And then if you're starting with the seed money now, it sounds like you might have a bigger ask later. And if so, then what is that?
Yeah, so answering your first, through the chair to Councilman Jones, answering your first question first, what we're going in the process of is standing up, going through the process of, again, picking the right neighborhood, the right corridor, having those individual conversations. Again, thinking about this place I spent a lot of time in Ward 1. A lot of the businesses on Lee Road are not prepared to receive a $250,000 subsidy, but it's going in and learning and bringing, again, our subject matter expertise of accounting, HR, and so many other things. Our members of the county and folks that can tell us what the implications are for providing a wage subsidy to their employees. And so standing up what that looks like and at an individual business standpoint. And so again, having those conversations on Lee Road, again, having those conversations on 105 and then Kinsman Road and so many other places all throughout our city to figure out which is the right corridor, which is the right neighborhood to run this pilot in, and then supplementing that with the number 100 individuals that we could have raise their hand to be a part of the pilot. Additionally, to answer your second question through the chair to Councilman Jones, this is the single and only ask of Cleveland City Council. Again, with $600,000 to get us through this research and development phase, and then with a flag from Cleveland City Council of investment, we believe in wholeheartedly that we will go out and get the rest of the $15 million needed to, again, put $15 million into the hands of Cleveland residents. Again, we already have robust and started conversations with national philanthropy, but it's best to start at home. In addition to that, we've already had conversations at the state level of folks that are very, very interested in our work because it aligns with a lot of the stuff in the interest of the state level administration. So we'd like to start at home, get the flag from Cleveland City Council, and then move forward as we go from there and finalize some of those relationships that we have.
Well, first, let me say this, Madam Chairwoman. It's really good to see two distinguished black men sitting at the table. And I know that looking here is really, the plight of black men in America is really bad. It's not a good picture. So when you do see black men that can articulate and can sit down and to the table of understanding to get things done, it's always a breath of fresh air. And it does our people proud. And so I will say this, Madam Chairwoman, when I look at a lot of the programs that have come across the table over the last several years in the city of Cleveland, they've all been directed towards just one sex. And so for black men in the city of Cleveland, there is no systems that are set up. I see the black women design sessions. What do we have for black businessmen sessions? How do we get them on track to be in this whole proposition? So as you're moving forward, hopefully you can start looking at that, because you lose the men in the neighborhood, you see what you got. You see what has happened in our neighborhoods, you know, and we've been talking about the proposition of poverty, and which is something that seems like you've been working on. And one of the things that I've been talking about is the accountability of our financial institutions. And to sit here today and see that we're being redlined, and we see on the national level that they've taken back affirmative action programs that have helped black people get ahead in this country, and then to look again and see that they even went a step farther, you didn't think that they could go any deeper. Then they've removed the diversity programs. They went after businesses and saying that you can't even have a diversity program anymore. And then to add insult onto injury, you turn back around and hit you again. And they have went as far as saying, hey, we don't like what's in the history books, so we want to rewrite history. So we gave you a job when we made you a slave and brought you to the country. So at the end of the day, this is the nonsense and the buffoonery that we're dealing with right here at this space and time. So it would be nice to see that you could write a program in, at least to focus on black men like me, sitting at this end of the table, that I had to start and establish my own business by scratch. And then each generation has to start all over again, because we don't have the fundamental foundation in our neighborhoods to really take it from one generation to the next generation, et cetera. So it would be nice to see that. And if we start putting those kinds of programs together, we can deal with the issue of the redlining going on in our neighborhood, fundamentally come together collectively, and I don't mind sitting down with you, then we can really start doing that. And I understand what this is, right? So, and I also know that this is an investment in hoping that this can get off to the ground. Can you tell me a little bit more about our national partners?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Through the chairwoman to Councilman Jones. Actually, Councilman Stephanie House Jones was one of the first people to say that, you know, we should probably look at a pilot that not only does 100 black women, but maybe it does 50 black women and 50 black men that are partnered in some way, that maybe they've had a child together, but they're not in a formalized relationship, because we want to look at this whole family. It's a conversation that I have deeply with Jeff Respy as well, that we have to look at we have to look at both sexes. There's growing literature around missing men, and something that she's spoken to well, about men between the ages of 18 and 40 that are just missing from the workforce. We just don't know where they are right now. They're doing things, they're in the world, but they're just not in the traditional realms of being able to count individuals. And so that's something, again, with this 2-year runway leading up to the 2026 pilot, that we will look through the right research question that is the right solution for Cleveland. Right now, we've gone down a pathway of looking at black women, but again, we haven't set anything in stone where we're exclusively examining that piece. And then your last question was, if you through the my national partners as well. So sitting on our advisory committee is we have Dr. Derek Hamilton of the New School, who has helped thrust universal basic employment into the larger conversation, what he's calling the human rights economy. You might remember him from the baby bonds work. And so he sees what he calls the human rights economy a three-legged stool. He sees UBE as guarantees that are connected to work, UBI as guarantees not connected to work, and baby bonds is guarantees that are connected to wealth building. Addition to Dr. Derek Hamilton, also at the New School, Sarah Truhoff, who used to be at the Policy Link, as well as inroads with Economic Security Project, Dr. Stacia West, who is at the University of Pennsylvania, also University of Tennessee, who's one of the foremost leader of UBI research, and who I quoted earlier as the individual that says that UBI, even though she runs the leading and most preeminent UBI pilots in the country, she sees UBI as the national solution that can get bipartisan support.
Well, you know, Madam Chairwoman, I would love to be on your advisory committee, and if Mr. Starr would join me, and be on the advisory committee, Mr. Starr. I would love for you to join me on the advisory committee if they allow for us to be extended so that we can talk about programs that impact African American men and what we can talk about in terms of assisting and helping them.
Through the chair? Yes, thank you. I appreciate that, and we'll definitely reach back out to you, have a conversation, and formalize that invitation. So I appreciate you for joining the conversation.
Absolutely.
With us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Spencer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Great questions from my colleague, Councilman Jones. Really important insights. Thank you. I wanted to, so a lot of my questions have already been answered through our conversation thus far. I wanted to ask a little bit more about, we had a great overview of this initial budget of $914,000 and the uses for those funds and how City Council can play a role in that process. Through the chair, is there a budget established for the overall 3-year initiative? What is the scale of that initiative?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, we are, for the 3-year pilot, we are standing up a $21 million budget. $15 million of that directly goes into the hands of small businesses and into the hands of Clevelanders. The additional $6 million, while looking robust, there's intense case management and support and wraparound services that goes into helping individuals through this pilot to ensure that we do no harm, and not only helping the individuals, but helping the small businesses. So that requires us to carry a number of social workers, a number of peer-to-peer supports. Getting out of poverty is extremely hard. It's why so many people haven't done it. So transitioning from having a CareSource card in your pocket to a medical mutual card is difficult. And so understanding co-insurance, co-pays, and all those other types of things, so having the supports in place for that. Going from having an EBT card of $400 to self-managing a budget on your own requires a lot of support and transition. And that's one of the things that we got out of our human-centered design phase process. I imagined a world in which we would bi-weekly provide support for our pilot participants, and then from the human-centered design phase process, the women flat out said, no, this is something that pilot participants should be able to check in daily, maybe through a phone call, but weekly through formalized meetings. So that ups the level of support and care that we have to provide for our pilot participants. Again, because these are individuals' lives. And there's one piece of it that we're standing up that's research, but there's also lives and families here, and that requires a robust around administrative support that goes included in there.
Very interesting. And so I believe it was in the presentation, I apologize, through the chair, how many families or individuals?
100 individuals. Through the chair to Councilman Spencer, we'd love to do more, but subsidizing $50,000 salaries for individuals gets really pricey really quickly for 3 years. So 100 serves as the smallest pilot we can run at 3 years to provide statistical significance. Anything less than that, we begin to run an ethnography, which is essentially just telling a robust and narrative story. But we want to be able to have a white paper and a piece of research at the end of this that we can go down to the state, go to other members and throughout our country and say, hey, we have empirical data that shows that this jobs guarantee solution works.
It sounds like you should go for a PhD dissertation while you're doing the process. You might as well. You're already doing the work. Thank you. So how many through the chair, I know this is not directly related to the piece before us today and the funding we're considering today. Just one more question on this topic, though, just because I'm so interested. How many team members would you need to hire to do that? And I love the human-centered design and the insights that were gained through that, through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilwoman. That question and answer is still to be determined. We have robust estimates right now, but the writing of the study will give us that hardcore answer right now. Right now, again, with safe estimates, what I've learned is that a 4-to-1 ratio from like supports to pilot participants to like one caseworker seems like a safe number to go with. But again, as we go through writing the study, we'll know how feasible that it is. Again, partnering with folks like Step Forward and thinking about, okay, do we add social workers? Is this a part-time work of their current social workers and things like that to figure out what that proper mix looks like. So, but right now, the 4-to-1 ratio is what I've been told is the proper setup.
Thank you. And then on your overall, when it comes to your overall $21 million budget for the 3-year pilot, how are you doing on fundraising thus far through the chair?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilwoman Spencer, we haven't even started in that process, but I don't want to say, as far as, collecting dollars in the bank, as cashing checks in the bank. But we've started all of the conversations needed down at the state with, the members of Economic Security Project and different folks like that to, again, raise the profile of this work that we're doing. We have the support of Cleveland Philanthropy in tow as they've helped us get through our initial design phase and the seed funding coming in, again, support here. And they know that their support in this round of funding will continue to we'll continue to need additional support, and they understand the sticker price, and they understand that they're part of their charge is helping us get to that number. And again, that's part of what the work that United Way of Greater Cleveland is going to help us do with their platform.
Right.
Great. I think I have a lot of just interest in the 3-year pilot itself and it just as that unfolds. So I recognize, though, that we're here to talk about a phase of the work, a very specific phase related to the funding at hand. So I will yield the floor, Madam Chair, and maybe ask for more time if other questions arise. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Next we have is Councilman Slife.
Thank you to both of you. I know I've spoken with others on the topic, and thank you, Councilwoman House Jones, for bringing this forward. It's a very intriguing and exciting idea, and I have had the opportunity to kind of have some deeper conversations. So I will admit that a lot of my questions are about kind of creating the conversation in this public scenario and maybe less about filling in the gaps for me. But I am of the opinion that government exists to help people, but I've come to realize that there are others who maybe have a different worldview. They don't think that it's the role of government to help people in need. So, in addition to this, I think it's the right thing to do to help people have a livable wage, to be able to, participate in the economy, to have stability, to be able to own a home. All of these things that I think that we value on this side of the table, and you do as well. I think that a benefit from this will be that data, because I think to the degree that there are skeptics out there, it'll help hammer home that, okay, if you're not of the belief that some things are just the right thing to do, there's an economic argument to make for this. And that when we allow these problems to perpetuate, especially cyclically over generations, all we really are doing is shooting ourselves as a society, in the foot, by holding people back to maybe prove some point that I don't totally understand what we're trying to prove. So I'm really appreciative. I do agree that there's an opportunity for you to spin this into a doctoral degree with maybe minimal work because of the length that you're already going through. So maybe you should consider it. But kind of to that end, could you explain more? I think one of the concerns that someone could bring is, okay, so there's going to be this program. We're going to help people during the duration of the program, and what's the continuity of it? You've touched on this, but could you speak to some of the wraparound services, kind of the ways that we're trying to help individuals through this, so we're not just handing money and walking away. There is a relationship through this. And then in addition to that, I'm really excited that the city of Cleveland is bringing this forward, but maybe we'll answer that first before I go on too many tangents. Yeah.
Okay. Through the chair to Councilman Slife, I appreciate your opening segment. Yes, measuring the direct to indirect cost of poverty is extremely high. Sometimes we lose sight of those costs because they are indirect. But as I said in the opening, is that certain failed policies have left poverty at the doorstep of cities and constantly trying to solve that issue. And so being able to pay for it on the front end is exponentially cheaper than trying to solve the issues of poverty on the back end, and that's what we're going down the pathway of trying to prove. Speaking to specifically your question around the wraparound support, so one of the first things we have in place is the social workers. A second thing you have in place is peer-to-peer engagement so that the 100 individuals going through the process can find community within themselves. They're having a unique experience at one time together. And so bringing in someone to help facilitate the process of being able to, as much as the expertise is going to come from the social workers and us and everyone standing up the pilot, a lot of the expertise of the lived experience is going to come from the people that are going through the actual pilot and being able to formalize that and disseminate and share that out. So as they come up with their own best practices, they are sharing it with their peers. Additionally, we have the re-credentialing support that we're going to provide a $5,000, looking to provide to find another $5,000 match so that people can reimagine themselves and re-credential themselves after the pilot to either stay in the current job that they're doing, find another elevation in work, or find a new opportunity. In addition to that, we're providing $5,000 of unrestricted dollars to help them manage the transitions of their life, whatever that looks like. Again, finding a new place to move, fixing their car, reimagining their life in any way that they may necessarily need to be. And again, as we continue to stand up this process, this research and development phase is about continuing to learn these supports needed. And that's just on the people side. On the business side, we have expertise from HR and accounting and so many other ways that we're going to help provide the small businesses with the requisite support needed to, again, taking in $250,000 a year, know what to do with that money, how do we ensure that the money is helpful and beneficial for them, and then also shows up directly into the 941 forms on the salaries.
Okay. Thank you. I think it's, and again, I wanted that to come out because I want people to see how methodical you've been in building this. I'm going to go on a bit of a sidebar and then bring it back. But I was in Columbus a couple weeks ago at a symposium on childcare, and during the state budget, the governor is budgeting for more vouchers so more families can qualify for assistance in paying for childcare. And when it came to the question and answer period, I kind of took the opportunity to say, hey, it's great that we're finding this way to increase the number of vouchers, but the crux of the problem is that child care facilities can only afford to pay their workers, we're hearing $13 an hour. And you can provide more vouchers, but there's a certain point where it doesn't matter that you're providing more vouchers. The problem is you can't get enough workers. And in addition, you are essentially creating vouchers that the people we need to work in childcare would qualify for, because people who work in childcare only make on average $13 an hour. So the point of that was more that I don't think childcare providers seek to pay their employees low wages. I think it's a market failure. Mm-hmm. They don't have the revenues in to provide the wage that they wish they could provide to their workers. And I said point blank, if money weren't an object, what do you think would be a fair wage for someone working in childcare? And one said $20 an hour. I think someone else said $25 an hour, which is about $50,000 a year. Someone said parity with a K-12 teacher. I bring it up because I really and I truly am excited that the city is partnering with you and United Way to push this conversation to other funders. But there will come a point where I think the continuity of the program is going to require maybe more financial resources than a municipality could bear. Mm-hmm. And I think that there are small businesses who very much would like to pay workers $50,000 or above, but there's just the market failure of what does a cup of coffee cost versus how much you pay. So I am, because there is obviously precedent at the state of Ohio through Jobs Ohio and other things of providing financial incentives for large economic development investments and all these things. I'm wondering, to me, this is not dissimilar. This is subsidizing wages to correct market failures so that the entire economy can grow. I'm interested in hearing more about your engagement with the state, and I see in the timeline that there have been some introductory conversations with Jobs and Family Services, just because I feel like the longevity of this is going to require a level of partnership and financial resources that maybe we don't have long term. And I want us to be upfront about that conversation and kind of planning from it on the front end so that we can strengthen that argument.
Yeah, appreciate that. Through the councilwoman to Councilman Slive, and I'll also defer to Ken because United Way had the most recent conversation with the state. So to your first point, you hit the nail on the head, is that so many are jobs, and I'm giving an ode to Emily Campbell at the Center for Community Solution, who articulates this so well during the pandemic, where we saw wages rise very quickly in the private sector because they're trying to match market demand. But for jobs in the direct care space that are reimbursement based, they didn't rise as well, as they didn't rise as quickly because they are, for all the ways you articulated, they are based on reimbursement. And this is just, hey, we can bill for this to the state, or we can bill to this to Medicaid or wherever. This is what we can pay you. Being able to provide this solution in the direct care space specifically is why we looked at certain jobs, is because you said it's a market failure that a parent is upset with childcare because for the first 6 weeks they have Mrs. Johnson as their teacher, the next 3 weeks they have Mr. Smith, and then the following 3 weeks they have Mr. Adams, and everyone it's not working out as that solution. These conversations that were started by Councilwoman House Jones brought us to Director Matt Damschroeder at the state of Ohio, who is much interested in our pilot, who then from those conversations came back to Cleveland and visited us through our human-centered design phase. And he sat in on one of the sessions where he heard the authentic voice of the 20 Black women that participated in our design phase, and is looking to provide grant support for the actual pilot, and then also sees how this aligns with the work that the administration is doing. One, to create more family self-sufficiency and self-sustaining families. And so those conversations are continuous, but what we're doing here is lining up our dollars locally first to then go out and say, hey, look what we've done here in the city of Cleveland. Now can you all match this as we go to stand up the pilot? And then
Through the chair to the councilman, the only thing I'll really add is I think why United Way is here is because we feel we're uniquely positioned to support this kind of initiative, right? Through our relationships with businesses, through our various workplace campaigns, we can talk to them like what practices could they change or do to help address some of the challenges that some of their workers might be experiencing, as well as policy and advocacy, where we sit with local as well as county and state officials as well. So we think that we can help support and on both kind of the programmatic side, the fundraising side, connections to businesses that would be interested in this, as well as the policy advocacy.
Thank you. I could probably keep going with nerd stuff to the chair, but just congratulations to you on the introduction of this. I think that when we think economic development at this table, we're often so focused on like direct return on investment, income tax generation, when the true definition of what economic development is pushing the production possibilities frontier. I'm doing it, but the growing the economy outward for all, and I think that this is more in spirit with that than many of the other things that we can or are able to do. So it's a very exciting conversation, and I'm glad we're having it. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilman Starr.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I know we're getting ready to bring this home, so I'll be real brief. And most of the questions that I did have came up about while we was at this table, mainly been answered. Only one thing I would ask is to the chair, to Mr. Devin Cotton. I thought we met about this in 2022. You cut me out, man? I done pulled up all my emails, got my notes, and I'm like, we talked about this in 2022. I love Councilwoman House Jones. That's my ace, boom, cool now. You said, and I told you I wanted to be involved, so.
There's still opportunity.
It's still
opportunity.
I mean, I only go where I like to be wanted and accepted now. I mean, through the chair, what happened, Devin? You got my personal cell.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Starr, there's never a day where I would cut you out. We go back too far, working our days around doing youth, working kinsmen, and then just personally. So do not consider yourself cut out. It has been a long road to be a startup in social entrepreneurship to get this to this point. And so as Councilman Jones has alluded to, love to have you involved in the work in a formalized way. And again, yeah, we have each other's numbers, so we could definitely hit each other up about this.
See, that's why relationship great. If it was someone else. Other than that, I would definitely ask, one of the things that I also often talk about, we as council, we talk about how to be strategic with our counterparts in legislative, different branches of government. I know that we're doing some different things. I know overall we need more money. Right now it's showing that Cleveland is going to lead this initiative, which is very important because sometimes you have to, like Councilwoman House Jones said, you got to walk it like you walk it. And if we don't do something or we just keep sitting around, we ain't getting nothing done. And I think this is great leadership, and I definitely commend her for that. But I would ask is, what would be the place or way to leverage the county as well? I know they just passed the Health and Human Service Levy, and I really believe this fits right up under there too. So even what we do here today, how do we leverage them as well through the chairwoman to understand?
Yes, appreciate the insights, and I think Ken's going to have more insights on this than I. We brought the county in through the design phase. One from a technical standpoint, through the chair to Councilman Starr, from a technical standpoint of being able to look and slide those numbers up. Like, okay, so if you make $50,000 in year one, and then year two, childcare is going to look like this, and then obviously we know what happened with the administration, sliding that number up to now 60,000, which is a good win for the pilot. Talking with Kevin Gowan, and then also bringing the individuals into the design phase so we can look and see what those hard numbers are to ensure that we're safely administering the pilot. But our goal is to bring the county in. Again, we're starting local, hyper-local with the city, then going out to the county, and then bringing the state in as well, and then also our national partners. So yes, this is a first brick in a longer stacking of bricks to bring additional support in from every single level of government, because also the county level of government is where a lot of these programs are administered. And so while we've talked from this angle of that those policies leave poverty at the doorstep for the city, they have the ability to administer some of those policies. And so we can talk from the angle directly of that this is a budgetary saving to shift the way that we move policy at the county level.
Yes, through the chair to the councilman, I agree, and I mean, and the best way to help bring the county to a table is also with your support as well. So I'm happy to have those conversations and bring them in. One way that also, addition to the Health and Human Service levy you mentioned, that might be a possible way to lever what we're doing here with universal basic employment is the county is a participant in the statewide benefits bridge pilot program. Also, with the newer funds, I believe works with employers as well. So that is another way. I'm happy to talk to our friends over there at the Health and Human Service Department to see if there's possibilities to leverage those resources as well.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for that clarification. And through the chair, I know there are. I think you mentioned some type of employers. I just want to make sure I got clarification that from the work that you did previously, you do have a list of different employers, whether it's in the private or public or nonprofit sectors that are willing to opt into this program through the chairwoman.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Starr, we have initial set of employers that were part of the design phase, and each one of them, their next question was like, so how are we a part of the pilot? But to ensure that we're able to measure the impact on place, so we want to see in 3 years, did we increase community engagement? Do you all have more people going to your community meetings? Do we have family engagement higher? Do we see a difference in Main Street? Do we see gun violence go down? Do we have more eyes on the street? We are going to first start and figure out which neighborhood or corridor is the right place to anchor this pilot, and then go through there and and then find the necessary businesses.
Okay, and for clarification, you said it's about 7 employers right now, correct?
No,
I heard some 7. No, none?
Yeah, essentially we have 0 employers that we have signed on, but we have 20 employers that were part of our design phase.
Design phase, okay. Design. And with that, okay, so through the design phase, you'll be able to, once you get this passed, you'll be able to then go out to different employers and get them to try to pitch this to them to be able to understand what's going on. I definitely would like to get follow-up of how that process looks like. But then also I would ask a question, how do you deal with what I think would possibly be an issue, but it's something I think can be fixed? How would you deal with different employers, say for instance, these fast food restaurants? If they look up and see, employee, I'm like, yo, I could go get that 50, I'm going to go get that 50. I mean, that's me, for real, the reality.
It's math, yeah.
So how do you create that balance for an employer to say people not just taking employees from them or building that capacity to bring the community, because in a community, you need all different levels of skills of pay, different type of jobs, but also we always want to try to make some money. And I think it's great where you are at, but how do you have that benchmark to be able to help in that case if those are the issue to the chair? What would be, through the chairwoman, how would that be something you will resolve?
Yeah, so through your first point, through the chair to Councilman Starr, we want to come back and publicly share what it looks like in the information, the data that we had as to why we're picking the right or why we're picking this particular neighborhood to stand this pilot in. You know what I mean? We, just ensure, so it's all full transparency and all fairness, is like, hey, we looked at this neighborhood, there's only 10 businesses that are interested and 40 participants, or now in this neighborhood, there's 20 businesses in this number. So we will make sure we come back and publicly share, whether it be coming back to this body or just making sure that you all are aware of the research that we went through in the process of why we're choosing the neighborhood that we're choosing. Additionally to your question about ensuring that the right businesses are involved, is so in addition to the $50,000 salary that we're subsidizing, the current $12 or $13 that they're paying, they're going to have to redirect that into their employees through paid benefits, through a medical, through paid time off, family medical leave, in improving job quality overall. So employers have a skin in the game because we want to ensure that we also know that job quality is a big factor as to why so many people are not, choosing to work or opting out of work. But we will go through the process of vetting, to your question specifically through the chair to Councilman Starr, we will go through the process of understanding that we don't want to see people switching jobs and jumping jobs because of the significant pay increase, but we know that there's enough Clevelanders out here, not out here working, or that have opted out of work because of the true math benefit that it's actually more advantageous for them to be a full-time parent or something along those lines. So I think there's enough individuals in our communities and friends and neighbors that are looking for employment opportunities that we won't see too much job switching, because 100 individuals, while it's robust enough to run a full research and pilot, it's not enough to make seismic market shifts in our city overall.
And through the chair to the councilman, we have had conversations with a local fast food chain that actually sees this as a potential way to bridge taking kind of line workers to management roles. So there is the opportunity for people to stay even within a fast food job, right? And be able to grow their employment there.
All right, and then my last point, I'll just wrap it up real quick through the chairwoman. I know I'm on my time. My time is coming up. So through the selection process of how you select people and the basic guidelines, could you elaborate on that? And then also, once the pilot program ends, how are people staying employed with that type of salary? And then also to ensure that you say, hey, I did this for 2 years, or I did this for few years. Is this more so similar to not workforce? What is it called? Similar to like a temp situation, and then would it be more so now that employer have to swallow that cost and be able to afford that employee, even though within this pilot program they were able to get some assistance to be able to get it started? So how does how do you get selected? What does that process look like? Is there guidelines? Is there a lottery? Is there application process? Who is vetting? What committee or anything is vetting that process? And then also, once the pilot program ends, am I hired on officially, or what does that logistics look like? And that'll be my final question, Chairwoman, through the chair.
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Starr. So the first selection process, we've had early conversations with CMHA. They have a self-sufficiency group that has essentially raised their hand and said, hey, we're looking to move to self-sufficiency. So there's enough targeted groups through our nonprofit partners that we think there's going to be enough people that want to raise their hand and say, hey, I want a pathway to prosperity, a pathway to individual agency. Again, the selection criteria will be based upon the research question that we end up writing. Again, right now, having the conversation around 100 women, additional conversations around 50 men, 50 women. So that will kind of set where that selection criteria goes to. And then also the family size. $50,000 using the Atlanta Federal Reserve benefit calculator works for a single head of household with 2 kids under the age of 5. So if an individual might have 3 or 4 kids, they may not be an ideal fit for this pilot because the subsidy just doesn't have the meat to solve that that family size. So the research question and working with our evaluation team will give us some criteria on, okay, how do we check the boxes of finding the right individuals to be a part of the pilot, and then also which demographic and that we choose to target in the neighborhood and things like that. Sunsetting in the pilot, that is something that is very important. One of the very first things that Councilman House Jones said when we started this conversation 2 years ago was that we can't elevate folks up to $50,000 and drop them back down to 0 for the sake of research. So sunsetting this pilot is very, very important. One of the ways we know, and then we have members on our advisory committee that run small businesses, they're resounding that they're saying that if you give us this subsidy, we won't need this subsidy in 3 years. Our business will do so well that I can keep these individuals on because it's just an input-output standpoint. Right now, they have individuals that they're paying $15 an hour, and in order for them to hit their margins, they need to produce at $40 or $45 or $50 an hour. Due to the skill set and things like that, they're not able to hit that number. So we can come in and provide a subsidy to help them hit the numbers that grows their business and pushes them in the right way, that they're like, hey, at some point in time, we know that we're essentially for benefits, we're getting a $50,000 employee for say $10,000 to $12,000. We're redirecting that money back into our business so that when this subsidy goes away, we can sunset the pilot in a way that ensures that these individuals stay on. As I mentioned when Councilman Slife asked the question, we have the recredentialing stipends in place to reimagine what individuals' lives look like. We have so many of our members of our community that are like, hey, my cousin was a nurse and she got me hired in as an STNA. I actually don't really want to be an STNA, but they got me hired into this job. So how do we use this $5,000? And hopefully, again, if you guys have relationships with Tri-C, we'd love to have them come in as a match to be able to put another additional $5,000 with it. $10,000 goes a long way at Tri-C to reimagine what folks can look like, to have a new set of credential and skills after they have 3 years of demonstrated work experience and building their resume for 3 years. But the walk away is that businesses flat out make more money when they're not paying for employee turnover, marketing new jobs, and all those indirect costs of poverty, no cause, no shows due to childcare and poor transportation and things like that. So capturing all those dollars, they can bank those and flat out allowing businesses to make more money throughout this pilot. And then secondly, through the additional supports that we have in place so that people can re-credential in a way that allows them to reimagine their lives after this pilot.
Thank you. I think I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate the presentation. I don't know if it's okay to add me to this. We got to talk about this offline. And I just want to make sure, just from the presentation now, my only concern is making sure people can retain that job.
Yes.
Because I think our people, they don't want to do certain things because they've been promised some stuff in the past.
Yes.
And I believe this council have been the new leading change in let's doing things in an equitable way, but also making sure we hold things accountable. So that is very, very important, and definitely would be in contact with you offline so we can do some more strategic planning. And thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman, for bringing this forward, as well as members of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? Yep, Councilwoman Gray.
Yeah, thank you, Chairwoman. Talking with Mr. Cotton the weekend when we had our deep dive conversation Sunday, which I was very appreciative of all the information that you gave me, of asking all the questions, and through this. Through your program. But one thing came to mind when I did ask you about something similar to Councilman Starr asked about when a person is, will be hired on that specific job, and they will be making that $50,000, and you said that that their benefits, that the other salary, will be rotated into the benefits, whereas they can use that for their benefits purposes. How would that be set up through through that particular organization?
Yeah, through the chair to Councilwoman Gray. Yes, so just going back to an example, right now, so many of our friends and neighbors are working at $14.50 or $13 an hour. The employer is no longer paying that $13 an hour or $14 an hour into salary because UBE is subsidizing the full salary. That $14 an hour is now going to pay for the medical mutual, vision, medical, dental care, paid time off, paid family medical leave, in other ways to make job quality. So that is paid by way of the employer. So just in the same way that you and I have a medical mutual card in our pocket to go to the doctor, the employers, we are going to help them stand up, because so many of our small businesses currently do not have this infrastructure. That's part of why this is a 2-year runway, to help them get this infrastructure, to stand up that necessary infrastructure so they can now pay to pay the benefits for their small business, pay the benefits for their employees.
Okay, so that's more salary going into the benefits that they're already going to be offered. So that's why I asked, would there be a greater coverage for them to have dealing with the health benefits? Because they already they overcharge us for health benefits services anyway. So I'm just, because I worked with HR back in at University Hospital.
Yes.
So I worked in that department. I know how all that is structured. So I'm saying that since that money going to be allocated back into their benefit package, then they paying more than what they should be paying for. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying this could happen. Is there some way that that the employer could take that salary, because say at the end of this program, they get hired, still at that 50,000 chair to Mr. Cotton, at that 50,000 salary rate or more. Could it be, and they're not going to be paid for that salary, and they're going to rotate it into the health benefits? I'm just saying, is there some way they can create some type of fund, like what you call that fund that you can, can't think of it, some type of funding that they can save into for child.
Oh, HSA.
Yeah, something like that. They can save that money into, like for child care, for some other type of beneficial program instead of the employer, taking that money for their benefits per se, and that money could be used more so for child care or for another fund that they can build up on as like a saving account, like
Yes.
similar like an RA.
Yes.
Like RA.
Yeah, no, that's a great question through the chair to the Councilwoman Gray. That's a great point.
And tweaking along the way.
Yes.
Just brainstorming.
And that's the benefit of this research and development phase, is that we're willing to take all ideas and to be able to embed them into the process. Modeled retirement is part of one of the things that we're requiring employers to pay as well.
Okay.
But additionally to one of your first questions or points is that in a 941 form, we need to be able to show, the small businesses will have to be able to show that they're paying $50,000 in wages.
Okay.
So they can't take part of that $50,000 subsidy because it does go directly to them. They can't take part of the $50,000 subsidy and then be able to pay part of the benefits, because then that pushes the salary down to something like $36,000 or something along those lines. So the total compensation for individuals is actually going to be much higher than $50,000 because salary plus benefits pushes the compensation package that UBE pays the $50,000 piece, the small business pays the overage on top.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But yes, I think I appreciate you for the suggestion around the subsidy in some form of savings account, so people can stack up those dollars at the end of the day.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair. That's the only question. And I support, this is terrific, moving forward, because we do have to change the dynamic of how the workforce should be paying people in the future, per se. So thank you, Chair, for bringing this to our attention. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to offer an amendment. The amendment is to, let's see, 343-2024, and under 1, in the title, line 2, and in section 1, line 1, strike economic and insert community in both places. So that's the first part of the amendment. Then in section 2, at the end, add RQS space 8006, comma, RL space 2024-41.
Thank you. It's been properly moved. There's been properly moved and seconded for an amendment. Are there any conversations regarding the amendments? Okay, without further ado, Madam Clerk, can you call the roll? Yes.
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 Thank you, Madam Clerk. The committee has approved ordinance 343-2024 as amended. Thank you all so much for your time, and committee is now adjourned.
Thank you.